candlesticks. I think they are important, and pivot points. So pivot points is of course a predictive indicator that is applied on the charts that provides market participants with intraday, intra-week, intra-month support and resistance levels. And of course, they are one of the most popular indicators applied. Some individuals will purely, if we actually go down onto the 15-minute chart, 30-minute. Some individuals will, of course, purely trade pivot levels as a strategy, looking at reversals, looking at price correcting from the pivot level. You can see sort of in this region here how price has reacted to R1 before turning down to the intraday pivot and holding above this region here, where we are now sort of seeing prices edge higher. Others will, look to use them as confluence. But I think, the good thing with the pivot points is that they're mathematically calculated. They're mathematically calculated, and so of course you can get variations depending on which sort of type of pivot point that you're using, whether it's Fibonacci, Woody, Classic, DM, which is I think stands for DMARC, or Camarilla, and those of course have various mathematical calculations that are applied, but for the most part, they are going to be very consistent. Of course, you've also got variations between providers as well that may result in slight discrepancies between the pivot points, but for the most part, they are consistent. As long as you're using the same type and provider, you're going to be getting consistent pivot levels printed each day. And the benefit I think with pivot levels is that it does allow you to prepare for the trading day. So how I like to use them is it does allow you to prepare for the trading day. And how I mean by that is, of course, once we reach 10 p.m., the new pivot points for the next day will refresh. The new pivot points, the pivot points for the next day will be loaded onto the chart, and it allows the trader to be able to really prepare themselves for the next trading session. So if you know that you've got, if we maybe go back in time, let's go back to sort of the start of the week. So of course this is last week Friday, of course going into the next day. So what we have here is going into Monday, Monday the 24th, which was yesterday. Of course, you've got those pivot points already loaded on the chart, and what I can already see is that we have these lows here coinciding with S1. We have the resistance highs coinciding with R1, and you have, of course, price above the intraday, opening up above the intraday pivot. So what this allows traders, or what this allows individuals to do, is to potentially plan out, ideas, and allows them to prepare ahead of time and set alerts and prepare their chart, so that once price gets to the level, they are able to execute in a smooth manner. I think that planning is extremely important, and something that I do prior to once the trading session closes at 10 p.m. I'm looking to plan ahead for the next trading session. Where are the key levels that I'm looking to buy or sell, and do I have any confluence at those levels? And the pivot points do provide further assistance for that, such as if we're looking at gold, of course, we know that the major trend is to buy, the counter trend is really to sell in line with the market structure. So if price pushes down into this zone here, I know that I have the previous day's lows, I know that I have S1 coinciding with the region, and therefore I can already outline that as a potential region going into the next day that I would be looking to buy if, of course, price pushes down to the level. Now, price might not push down to the level, and if price doesn't push down to the level, that's fine. But what you've been able to do is you've been able to plan. Where are you going to be looking for buys? It's all well and good saying I want to buy gold or I want to buy euro yen, but where are you going to be buying it? And being able to plan ahead for the trading day with things like pivot points, I think helps. In a similar fashion, you could also say, okay, I understand that gold is in a bullish trend, but the counter trend would be to sell. If price pushes up to this region here and shows rejection, and I get candlestick confirmation, it's the prior weekly highs, it's R1, this could be a level that I would be interested, could be a level that I may be interested in selling at. And so what you've already been able to do is sort of outline for yourself key points, that you're going to be having your eyes on going into the next trading day. And what that allows you to do is focus on your assets, and it very much ensures consistency in your trading approach. Because when you're going into the trading day, you have a clear idea as to what you're going to be doing, and you know what you're not going to be doing. If price is here, you know that you're not interested. Whether price holds at the level, you may have, outlined that, okay, if price holds at the pivot point, then I'm going to be looking for longs, but it's definitely a lower probability opportunity because it's not at the key levels. You can see that this is definitely a key level. If we get a third touch, that would definitely validate the level as a key support. And this is a key resistance level. If we were to get a third touch, that would validate the level as resistance as well. So it allows the individual to plot their alerts, plot their outline where they're going to be interested, and then all they're really waiting to do is wait for price to move to the level. And what that allows the individual to do is, of course, take their attention away from the asset, scanning and searching for opportunities within the trading day, because they've already done the planning and prep prior to the session beginning. Now, it may be the case that by the time you wake up in the morning, price is all the way up here. Price, you've got to your desk at 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. or whichever time you arrive, and gold has broken through the level, it's broken through R1. What are you going to do? And that's where you would look to reevaluate. You may have even outlined those plans already, prior to the trading session. So you may have 4 trading plans in a sense, or you may have only outlined 2 trading plans as to where price is currently trading. But you may have actually outlined, okay, if price breaks the level, then what are you going to do? I think using if then syntax is very important, and it simplifies the process. If price moves down to this level, then I'm going to be looking to buy. If price holds, if price breaks this level, then I'm going to be looking for sells on a potential retest and move to the downside. If price pushes up to this level, then I'm going to be looking for price to move to the downside if we hold. If price breaks the resistance level, then I'm going to be waiting for price to retest, and then I'm going to be looking for a potential move to the upside. So even if you wake up the next day and price has broken R1, what you would then look to do is just reevaluate. Reevaluate. Okay, what is your next trading setup, and position yourself accordingly. So that is one way, of course, is how to incorporate, or how I incorporate pivot points. Of course, you also have other pivot points that are going to be more relevant for the higher time frames. I don't think many individuals use them, but I do think they are valuable and useful. The weekly pivot levels and the monthly pivot levels. So I do apply the weekly pivot levels as well. And it's basically the same thing. It's the same thing, just on a weekly time frame. So it shows you the week's pivot levels. So weekly pivot, weekly R1, weekly R2, weekly R3. It's very much the sort of same thing as an intraday. The only difference is, of course, these will refresh or reload at the end of going into the next week. So of course, this is last week. So if we go into the next week, we should get those new pivot points. What we can see there immediately, we've got intraday, intra-week pivot coinciding with this region here. And this is also where we had, yesterday's S1 level. So it can provide you with further confluence as well. We've got R1 up above, S1 down below, and it just provides you with confluence. You know, if price holds at the pivot level, and you can see that it's providing support, just as how we had in this region here, with price testing R1, you know, breaking above R1, testing R1 as support, and then moving to the upside. It can provide you with, you know, potential guidance or just extra confluence for your trading setup or trading idea. Less used, or pivot point, you know, I do use them, but I don't really refer to them as often because, you know, they don't change regularly, is the monthly, you know, the monthly pivot points. So the monthly pivot points, of course, very much the same thing, but based on a monthly time frame. So they're going to be very much more spread apart depending on the previous month's, you know, trading range. You can see here how you're not always going to see reactions with the monthly pivot points. You might get a few reactions, but what you can see is that the pivot points are very much spread apart, and price is really only traded down. It opened up above the intramonth pivot, indicative of an uptrend for the month. So whenever we open up above the intraday, whenever we open up above the pivot level, that potentially shows us that we could see a bullish day, a bullish week, or a bullish month. So we've opened up above the intramonth pivot, we've pressed higher, we've broken through R1, we've tested R1, and, you know, that does coincide with the fib level that we had on earlier, you know, being that 38.2. So it coincides with the monthly R1 level and the 38.2% correction. Then we break through R2. We didn't really test R2 on the retrace. We didn't really test R2 on the retrace. Since then, you know, continuing to trade within R2 and R3. So something to, I don't really refer to it as often, purely because, you know, they very much stay the same each month, but something again to just provide confluence and further direction or guidance.